Iran claims it can mobilize 5 million soldiers, a figure that shocked the world. Then on March, Tomahawk cruise missiles struck Iranian soil as part of Operation Epic Fury, and that number stopped being propaganda. It became a strategic question and with global consequences. So how many of those 5 million can Iran actually put into a fight? Iran's claim of a 5 million strong force starts with a layered system, not a single army. At the core stands the Artesh, Iran's regular military, with about 350,000 active duty personnel, soldiers, sailors, and airmen who form the backbone of any conventional defense. Alongside them, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC, fields another 150,000 full-time members. The IRGC's mandate extends beyond borders, managing everything from missile brigades to covert foreign operations. Together, these two institutions account for roughly 500,000 professional troops, trained and salaried, with a further 350,000 reservists on call after completing mandatory service. But Iran's manpower calculation does not stop there. The Basij, a paramilitary force under the IRGC's command, is designed for mass mobilization. Official rosters and leaked recruitment lists show that about 1.8 million Iranians have completed at least one cycle of Basij training. Most receive only a few weeks of instruction, just enough to handle small arms and crowd control. A former conscript, now years removed from his own Basij service, recalls standing in formation with thousands of others, learning basic drills and discipline, but never touching heavy weapons or advanced equipment. The Basij's function is clear. In peacetime, they support internal security. In wartime, they are expected to flood the ranks as auxiliary fighters and support crews, swelling the numbers but not necessarily the combat power. Iran's legal framework makes all this possible. Every male citizen between 18 and 34 is required to serve, and the Ministry of Defense can recall trained conscripts for up to a decade after their initial term. This system creates a vast pool of reservists, but only a fraction would be ready for frontline duty at a moment's notice. The headline figure of 5 million, then, is a composite: active troops, reservists, Basij volunteers, and in Tehran's broadest definition, even foreign proxy fighters in Lebanon, Iraq, Syria, and Yemen. On paper, the numbers are staggering. Artesh, 350,000, IRGC, 150,000. Basij, 1.8 million with at least basic training. Add in the reserve pool, and the tally climbs even higher. But beneath the surface, these layers reveal a force built for rapid swelling in times of crisis, not for sustained high-intensity combat. The next challenge is not just how many can be called up, but how many can be trained, equipped, and moved where they are needed when the missiles start to fly. Iran's headline figure of 5 million mobilizable fighters collapses under closer scrutiny. When all branches are counted, Artesh, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, Basij, reservists, and proxies, the theoretical pool appears vast. But the reality on the ground is far more constrained. The sum of active Artesh and Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps personnel hovers around 500,000, while the Basij, touted as a mass mobilization force, brings another 1.8 million with at least basic training. Add in the reserve pool and regional proxies, and the tally approaches 1.4 million who could be called up in a crisis. But this number is an upper bound, not a field-ready army. Mobilizing even a fraction of this force exposes a hard ceiling. Iran's logistics, aging trucks, overstretched rail lines, and a patchwork airlift fleet can barely support 1 million troops for more than a few weeks. Command infrastructure is built for asymmetric warfare and decentralized action, not for coordinating millions in the field. Radio and digital networks saturate quickly, fragmenting control as numbers swell. Fuel, ammunition, and spare parts run short long before the 5 million mark is reached. Even under perfect conditions, moving, feeding, and equipping more than 1.4 million people strains every part of the system. Most Basij volunteers have only a few weeks of training, and proxies abroad operate under separate chains of command, dependent on Iranian supply lines that are vulnerable to interdiction. The headline number, then, is less a statement of deployable strength than a tool of psychological warfare, meant to deter adversaries by projecting overwhelming manpower. In practice, Iran's real-world ceiling sits at 1.4 million, and even that figure assumes no disruption from airstrikes, sanctions, or cyber attacks. The gap between paper and reality is decisive. In the event of a true high-intensity conflict, it isn't the size of the pool that matters most, but the ability to mobilize, sustain, and command those who are actually ready for battle. That limit will shape every phase of the war now unfolding. Iran's military power is built on more than just troop numbers. Its strategy relies on a mix of ballistic missiles, drones, and a network of proxy forces that reach far beyond its borders. The Shahab-3 missile, first fielded in the early 2000s, can hit targets up to 1,500 kilometers away. The Qadr-110 stretches that range to 1,700 kilometers, and the solid fuel Sejul goes beyond 2,000 kilometers. Warheads can weigh as much as 1,200 kilograms, and with a circular error probable between 30 and 100 meters, these missiles are accurate enough to threaten airfields, naval installations, and vital infrastructure from the Gulf to the Levant. Iran's drones add another layer. The Shahed-136, a loitering munition with a 2,000-kilometer range, is designed for swarm attacks. In May 2025, a confirmed Shahed-136 swarm launched from sites near Bandar Abbas and Hormuz and targeted commercial ships in the Strait of Hormuz. Satellite images verified both the launch points and the impact spread, showing how even limited strikes can disrupt shipping lanes and unsettle global markets. Other drones, like the Shahed-129, handle surveillance and attack missions, staying aloft for 24 hours and carrying up to 40 kilograms. Cheap and easy to produce, these drones can saturate defenses or overwhelm isolated targets, especially under sanctions. Iran's proxies multiply its influence. Hezbollah in Lebanon fields 30,000 to 50,000 fighters and over 150,000 rockets. Iraq's popular mobilization forces number up to 100,000. In Syria, Iranian-backed militias reach 60,000, while the Houthis in Yemen count up to 50,000 fighters and have targeted Red Sea shipping with missiles and drones. Even Hamas and other Palestinian groups, with 10,000 to 20,000 fighters, extend Iran's reach. These groups rely on Iranian training, supply lines, and technology, especially drones and rockets, creating a web of forces that can launch attacks across multiple fronts. This network, combined with Iran's missile and drone arsenal, allows Tehran to pressure rivals without massing troops. Operation Epic Fury began not as a single strike, but as a carefully sequenced campaign designed to dismantle Iran's asymmetric arsenal piece by piece. The Department of Defense outlined 4 distinct phases in its March 2025 Joint Strategic Guidance. The first phase, economic pressure, tightened sanctions on Iranian oil exports and targeted the suppliers feeding Iran's drone and missile programs. Within weeks, the second phase unleashed offensive cyber operations. United States cyber teams struck at Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps missile command servers and unmanned aerial vehicle production facilities in Isfahan, disrupting coordination and slowing the assembly of new weapons. The third phase marked the shift to direct kinetic action. On March 15, 2025, the Pentagon released footage of United States Navy Tomahawk missiles striking a ballistic missile silo in Khuzestan. The video, confirmed by satellite imagery and open-source analysts, showed the destruction of a launch site that had been linked to recent missile attacks in the Gulf. This strike was more than a show of force. It was a calculated attempt to degrade Iran's ability to launch further salvos, to buy time for Allied defenses, and to send a message to Tehran's regional partners. Epic Fury's objectives went beyond immediate battlefield gains. By targeting launch sites, drone factories, and proxy command nodes, the operation aimed to blunt the tools that give Iran leverage across the Middle East. Each phase was designed to disrupt a different pillar of Iran's strategy, its ability to project power through missiles, drones, and allied militias. The risks, however, were clear from the start. Every strike on Iranian territory carried the chance of escalation, retaliation against United States assets, or a wider regional conflict. The Department of Defense briefing on March 10, 2025 left no doubt. The campaign would be sustained, multi-domain, and relentless, and it would also walk a narrow line between deterrence and open war. As Epic Fury unfolded, the world watched the collision of two doctrines, one built on mass mobilization and asymmetric reach, the other on precision, technology, and overwhelming force. The first Tomahawk strike in Khuzestan set the tone. The United States would not wait for the next missile to be launched. For Iran, the challenge was clear: absorb the blows, adapt, and find ways to keep its network of proxies and arsenals in play despite mounting pressure. Iran's ability to mobilize vast manpower, backed by missiles, drones, and proxies, remains a strategic reality, not just a headline. As Operation Epic Fury accelerates confrontation, the risks of escalation stretch far beyond the region. In this standoff, miscalculation could redraw global lines overnight. What happens next matters to everyone.